Incarceration is terrifying. All freedoms gone. You're stuck in there with all sorts of wildcards who may or may not have given up on any semblance of decency. Plus, there's always the chance that you'll be put in there on false charges, or even worse, you'll be imprisoned for breaking laws that were unjust to start with. It's weird how few actual prison-themed horror movies there are, but today we're gonna do our best to list as many as we can. That's right, it's time for our top 5 horror movie prisons. Coming in at number 5, we've got the Vertical Self-Management Center from The Platform. Let's start the list with a relatively new one, The Platform. Spain's latest offering to the sci-fi horror prison gods. A prescient and modern parable about widespread economic inequality and the importance of solidarity. All taking place in a vertical prison where the folks only get to eat at the top. The premise here is that somewhere out there is a prison known as the Vertical Self-Management Center. It is tall, with each floor being connected by a platform that descends from top to bottom. The platform is full of food at the very top and makes a stop on every floor. The folks at the start can take whatever they want, leaving those down below with their leftovers. If you try to hold on to any of the food, the platform will become very difficult to live on. And to make things really interesting, you are randomly reassigned to a different floor every month. The total number of platforms isn't known, but most folks assume it's in the hundreds. Sounds like a bit of a nightmare, eh? Right away it becomes apparent that the lower you get, the more desperate folks are for food. Cannibalism's almost a given, and plenty of people die of starvation. It's pretty raunchy at all times, with strips of flesh being torn off unwilling participants. The craziest thing is that it's not just criminals who make their way into the prison. The main character, Goreng, voluntarily entered in order to earn his diploma. 6 months in the hole for a credential that could possibly earn him a job in the outside world. It's revealed that all sorts of people enter for different reasons, some for minor crimes, others because they believe they can help the people within, and even more people somehow looking for other people. However, they all suffer similar fates in the end, bloody, starving, and afraid. Goreng and his compatriots attempt to send a message to the folks up top in a few different ways. Often they ride the platform down further, lowering their chances of a quality meal, but inspiring those below to ration the food so that everyone has a chance to eat. Solidarity or shit. It's scary how it presents violence and depravity, but also in how it mirrors our current reality. There are ways to feed everyone. Nobody truly has to kill another person in order to eat, not anymore anyways, but the systems that move food along don't seem to take this into account. It's a little on the nose, and subtlety doesn't exist here, but it is a fascinating look at a very tall prison. Coming in at number 4, we've got New York from Escape from New York. While it might not be horror by the strictest terms, I'm going to include it anyway. John Carpenter's vision of an apocalyptic future in which Manhattan is a high-security prison full of the world's most dangerous criminals is a stone-cold classic. It's full of some ridiculously charming 80s futuristic technology and some absolutely brutal moments. If you can't include a Carpenter-Russell collaboration on a prison horror list, I don't know what to do. When the president's plane is hijacked and crashed into New York, only Snake Plissken can save him. If he manages to snag the commander-in-chief before any of the lunatics in Manhattan get to him, he'll be granted a presidential pardon. Sounds like a good time, right? The converted Big Apple is a place full of horrors of every kind. In fact, it says a whole lot about the state of the world at large. America is so riddled with crime that they just kind of gave up on making actual prisons and dumped all the unsavory characters on an island where if you try to leave, you just get shot. Genius. Once you're put on the island, there are no rules, no regulations, just stay within the boundaries and go nuts. This leads to all sorts of insane groups cropping up, full of violent and unhinged individuals. To survive in this version of New York, you've got to be really smart or really crazy. Sometimes both is a good choice too. Snake runs into all sorts of trouble on his quest to save the president, from lunatics in the streets to the bombastic and outlandish Duke who claims to rule over the city. And don't forget about the president, who seems to have zero concern about anything or anyone's lives other than returning to power. It's a bleak look at the future, but it doesn't feel too far off. Sure, we haven't converted any major metropolitan areas into prisons yet, but we've got enough eccentrics in powerful positions and a police state that doesn't seem to be shrinking. Sometimes the scariest movies don't involve serial killers. Let's just try to avoid putting all of our trust in the government, yeah? Coming in at number 3, we've got Creedmoor Prison from Prison. Now here's some real prison horror. Literally a movie about a prison ghost. I'm actually really surprised that more folks haven't tried to make a movie like this. Take in that Viggo Mortensen stars as the ghost too. The story goes like this. 30 years ago, an inmate at Creedmoor, Charlie Forsyth, was wrongfully electrocuted. The prison shuts down for a bit and reopens with a new warden, Ethan Sharp. Sharp, like the weasel he is, knows that Forsyth was innocent. So now the ghost of Charlie haunts the cells of the newly reopened Creedmoor, and he's gonna kill inmates until he gets what he wants: revenge. Yikes, that's a rough spot to be. Imagine you're convicted for a relatively minor crime and decide that you're just gonna tough it out. You know, a few years in the hoosegow and then back on your feet. Time to get prison ripped and think about life, right? Wrong! Aragorn is a ghost and he wants you dead. Unless the warden is willing to sacrifice himself, but if you've ever seen a prison movie, you know that wardens are usually selfish, cruel, and cowardly, so good luck with that. In classic 80s style, this movie is packed to the gills with blood and guts, so even if the story isn't that fascinating, at least you'll get to see a few people explode. Coming in at number 2, we've got Jailhouse 41, from female convict scorpion, Jailhouse 41. The second in an extensive series of female convict scorpion movies, Jailhouse 41 is probably the most well received and widely known. They even managed to reboot the series in 2008, although with a little less success than expected. This long run of Japanese women in prison movies is full of all sorts of horrific torture, crazy kills, and exploitation elements. Let's just say you'd never want to find yourself in one of these prisons, convict or otherwise. Jailhouse 41 is particularly gnarly. The warden, Goda, is about to be promoted and is kind of mad with power. After being scratched by a shiv by one of his prisoners, he orders her to be publicly by guards who end up almost killing her. Plenty of other indignities are forced upon prisoners who must endure or face more intense punishments. Of course, some prisoners do escape, but the outside world is not much kinder to them, and the resources that the warden and company are willing to expend in order to find these prisoners is a little ridiculous. Definitely a raunchy prison full of exploitative practices, and one you cannot forget. And finally at number 1, we've got The Cube from Cube. Canadian classic. The almost impenetrable, confusing, Cartesian coordinated cube. Each cubic room has the potential to carry a trap, killing those who enter unprepared. Why does it exist? Who knows? Why do these people get dropped into it? To put it to use, I guess. It's a perfectly horrifying prison thanks to its ambiguity and ability to kill in grotesque fashion. When you don't know the purpose of something deadly, it becomes that much more dangerous. Visually stunning, it's incredible to behold. It was all shot in one room too, just done up to look like different rooms each time. 5 folks are dropped into the cube, each with very strong personalities and reasons to dislike each other. And they gotta find a way out. Of course, this doesn't go as planned, and folks start getting on each other's nerves really quick. They also fall victim to some deadly traps. The actual reason that they're all here can only be guessed at, but you can be sure that they want to escape. The traps change pretty consistently though, so doing so is easier said than done. While it might not be a nameable prison with bars and convicted criminals populating it, Cube is one of the most interesting prison horror movies going. Any prison movie can be spun as a horror, but these 5 seem to stand out as extra horrific. Plus, I'm sure I missed some B-movie classics in my search. I feel like there should be way more prison horror out there. So let me know if you know any. What'd you think of the list? Have you seen any of these? All of them? What's the scariest prison movie out there? Make sure you let me know down in the comments. Speaking of comments, let's take a look at some of your more pernicious ones from the top 5 best horror movies based on real life. Peter Grant says, if I ever, for any reason, like a nuclear war, had to result to cannibalism, I could never eat a person's flesh rare. It would have to be well done, maybe like a nice charbroiled burger. This looks like a slice of thigh or arm. So you're gonna turn down cannibal meals until you can find a suitable meat grinder? I guess you gotta respect the grind. Tributex says, I'm waiting for the horror movie about 2020. Oh god, there's gonna be plenty, just you wait. I'm not really looking forward to watching all these different movies giving us different perspectives on this year. RK7 says, real life horror story, I'm broke. Relatable. Surya Das says, the people who currently own the Amityville horror house changed those iconic windows and just put regular square windows. Rest in peace, iconic windows, you shall not be forgotten. And that's all the time we have for today. I'm going to ask a volunteer from the audience to come up on stage and show off their telekinetic abilities. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.